The African Deep Dive podcast is brought to you by the African Technology Policy Studies Network. This podcast explores how science, technology, and innovation can drive sustainable development and global inclusion in Africa.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to be taking a deep dive into a topic that I'm really excited about.
Okay.
It's eco-innovation in Africa.
All right.
And we're going to be using as our main source material a report from the African Technology Policy Studies Network.
Okay.
So ATPS. And they are an organization dedicated to boosting science and tech across the continent.
Right.
So first off, I think it would be good to kind of define what exactly we mean when we say eco-innovation.
Sure.
So essentially, it's about tackling those environmental challenges that we know are so pressing, but also creating economic opportunities.
Right.
So it's about sustainability, but with that added dash of ingenuity and resourcefulness.
It's like kind of, we see this a lot, right?
Yeah.
In places where resources are very limited, that's where you see eco-innovation really flourish.
Yeah, it's necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing.
Absolutely. And this report that we are looking at dives into 6 countries, Botswana, Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Nigeria, and Zambia.
Okay.
And it's really taking a close look at how these different countries are approaching eco-innovation, particularly in terms of policy. And here's the first thing that I found really interesting.
Okay.
None of these countries have a single dedicated eco-innovation policy.
Right. Yeah, and that's...
Is that good or bad? I don't know.
It's not necessarily a bad thing.
Okay.
So while it might seem like, a dedicated policy would be a clear signal that this country is really committed to this, this concept.
Right.
What we see is that these countries have kind of woven these eco-innovation principles into all sorts of different policies, whether it's environmental policies, agricultural policies, or even like their constitutions.
So it's less about having like a flashy sort of,
eco-innovation label, and more about really integrating these principles into all facets of existing policies.
Like think about Kenya's ban on plastic bags.
Oh, yeah.
So that, it initially was driven by environmental concerns.
Right.
But it's led to this huge boom in biodegradable alternatives.
Yeah.
Like now Kenya is
a
leader in this space.
That's a great example of how a policy, maybe even if it's not explicitly about eco-innovation, can really...
Can spur it.
Totally. It sounds like we are already seeing eco-innovation in action, even without these dedicated policies. But I think before we go too far into the examples, it's important to sort of step back and clearly define what eco-innovation is.
So it's a broader concept than a lot of people might think.
Okay.
So the OECD, which is a global organization focused on development, breaks it down into a bunch of different categories.
Yeah.
So we're talking about changes to products, processes, marketing, even organizations and institutions.
So it's not just about this like shiny new tech.
It's holistic.
It's about the whole
thing.
Picture. So say you're a business in Africa.
Okay.
And you want to become more sustainable. You could start using local sustainably sourced materials for your products.
Exactly.
That would be product innovation.
Product innovation. Yep.
But then you could also look at how you manufacture your products. Could you be using solar power in your factory?
That's process innovation.
Right, process innovation. And then to get even more creative, you could create an entirely new department that's focused on sustainability and influences decisions across the whole company.
Organizational innovation.
Right. Yeah. So it really is about looking at every facet of what you do.
And finding ways to do it better.
Yeah. And how can you make it better for the planet and also better for the people?
Exactly. For the planet and the people.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it really is about this big picture, not just these small tweaks here and there.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's so much room for creativity.
Totally.
Speaking of creativity, I am ready to hear some of these examples that you were talking about.
Okay. Let's start with Nigeria.
Okay.
They've implemented this really fascinating biofuel policy.
Okay.
Where they are turning agricultural products, so things like cassava, sugarcane, into cleaner burning fuels.
Okay, so they're using things that they already have a lot of.
Using what's readily available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the impact of that been?
So it's kind of like a double win.
Okay.
It reduces their reliance on fossil fuels.
Which is great.
Good for the environment.
Yeah.
But it also helps to bolster the agricultural sector.
Yeah.
By creating new opportunities for farmers.
It's like turning a potential waste product.
Waste product into a resource.
Yeah, into something that can be valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I'm intrigued.
Okay, what about Ghana?
Okay, let's hear about Ghana.
Their Environmental Protection Agency is really proactive.
Okay.
So they're not just setting environmental standards, but they're also making sure that businesses are actually complying.
Wow.
So they are promoting the adoption of cleaner production methods and waste reduction strategies.
So they're really serious about enforcement.
They are.
Which is encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lastly, let's go back to Kenya.
Oh, okay.
Remember their Vision 2030?
Yes.
So a central pillar of that development plan is creating what they call a green economy.
Okay. I've heard that term, but I'm not really sure what it means.
So essentially a green economy is an economy that is low carbon, resource efficient, and socially inclusive. So it aims to decouple economic growth from environmental degradation.
Right.
It's about ensuring a more sustainable future.
So Kenya is really taking steps.
They're working towards this vision with things like renewable energy projects and promoting ecotourism.
That's ambitious.
It is.
But it seems like Kenya...
They're up for the challenge.
Yeah, they're not afraid to try new things.
They're really pushing boundaries.
These examples are so inspiring. It makes you wonder, could Africa actually become a global leader?
That's a great question.
In eco-innovation. I mean, given all these...
That's the question we'll be kind of exploring as deep dive. But to really understand that potential, we need to look at the flip side.
Okay.
So what are the obstacles?
Yeah, what are the challenges?
Yeah, what are the hurdles that eco-innovation faces in Africa?
Right.
That's where the ATPS report gets really interesting.
Okay. I am ready to hear about those challenges.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. So we were just talking about those inspiring eco-innovation initiatives, but the report also points out some pretty big hurdles.
Right.
What are some of the biggest challenges?
Well, a big one is funding.
Okay.
Or I guess you could say a lack of funding.
Right. Of course, innovation doesn't just happen. You need resources.
You need resources,
to make it happen.
Exactly.
So did the report offer any solutions?
They did.
Okay.
They suggest thinking outside the box when it comes to funding.
Right.
Look beyond just traditional government channels.
Okay.
So, for example, public-private partnerships.
Yeah, where like a government agency could team up with a company
to develop like
to develop some new technology.
Like a new solar energy technology.
Yeah, I see. So the company gets the funding that they need, and the government gets closer to achieving...
Right? Everybody wins.
Those renewable energy goals?
Yeah.
Cool. Win-win.
The ATPS also suggests tapping into international investment.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of interest globally right now in sustainable development.
Yeah.
So attracting that funding to Africa could be a game changer.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the second challenge?
So that was the lack of dedicated eco-innovation policies.
Which we talked about a little bit before.
Yeah, we touched on that earlier.
I'm curious about that. Like, I get that having like a dedicated policy sends a strong signal.
Right.
But wouldn't it be more effective to just integrate eco-innovation into all policies?
I mean, there are strong arguments for both approaches.
Okay.
But the ATPS makes a case for these focused policies that are more than just words.
Yeah.
Like they envision policies with clear goals. Like we're going to reduce carbon emissions by this percentage.
Right. Concrete targets.
Yeah. Or we're going to boost the use of recycled materials by this much.
So not just aspirations, but concrete targets.
Exactly. And then these policies could include things like incentives for businesses to go green.
Okay.
Or funding for sustainable tech research. Or maybe regulations that discourage environmentally harmful practices.
So it's about
having that cohesive strategy.
Yeah, it's about really putting your money where your mouth is. Okay, I like that. Let's move on to the last challenge.
Okay, so the last one is about the future of eco-innovation in Africa.
All right.
The report highlights this mismatch between what's being taught in schools and the skills that are actually needed to become an eco-innovator.
Right.
So they're calling for like an overhaul of education systems.
That's a big ask.
To really embed those sustainability principles from a young age.
Yeah. So it's not just adding a couple environmental science classes.
Right. It's about weaving sustainability into the very fabric of education.
What would that actually look like?
Imagine a world where engineering students are designing buildings with energy efficiency in mind.
Okay.
Where business schools are teaching about the circular economy, or even where art students are incorporating recycled materials into their work.
Yeah, so it's really about giving students the tools and the mindset to build a sustainable future.
Exactly.
I love that vision.
Yeah.
But I mean, how realistic are these recommendations?
Right. That's a big question. And that's where I think the discussion needs to go beyond just, saying here are the recommendations.
Right.
So let's take that first suggestion, increasing R&D funding.
Okay.
It sounds great.
Right.
But how do you actually make that happen?
Yeah, where does the money come from?
Exactly, because...
Especially when resources are already stretched so thin.
Right. There are so many competing priorities in these countries.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not just about advocating for more money.
Yeah.
It's about finding new ways to finance things, new partnerships, and really demonstrating the potential return on investment.
It's about making that business case for sustainability. Okay, so funding is a complex issue.
Yeah, it's complicated.
What about those standalone eco-innovation policies?
So those are going to depend on a lot of different things. You've got to have political will. You've got to have the institutional capacity and the ability to actually enforce those policies.
Because the policy is only as good as implementation.
Right.
So then there's also the question of design.
Yeah. How do you design these policies?
Yeah.
Should they be these top-down directives from the government? Or should they involve,
Right. Should they be more collaborative?
Collaborative, exactly.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of questions there.
Yeah, it seems like creating those effective policies.
They take a lot of thought.
Requires a lot of thought.
And understanding of the local context.
Yeah, what about the education piece?
So that's a big one.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Revamping an entire education system.
You're not going to see results right away.
This is a long term.
Yeah, this is a long game.
Leap of change.
It's about gradually integrating sustainability into teacher training, into new curricula, and creating partnerships between schools and organizations that are working in the field.
So it's about everybody working together.
It is a multifaceted approach.
Okay. I'm starting to see a theme here.
Yeah.
These recommendations, while exciting, they're not quick fixes.
They're not.
They require a real commitment.
Yeah, a sustained commitment.
And a willingness to think differently.
And that's why I think the discussion around eco-innovation in Africa needs to move beyond just identifying the problems and solutions. It's about understanding the complexities,
and
navigating those trade-offs, and building that long-term vision.
Yeah, it's about really thinking about the legacy that we're leaving.
Exactly.
I mean, this has been such an insightful conversation.
I think so, too.
And I'm really starting to understand why this topic is so important.
It is, and to get a better sense of how these ideas are actually being put into practice, I think we should look at some real-world examples.
Okay, let's do that.
All right.
Give me some examples of how these challenges are being tackled.
Let's do it.
We've been talking about the challenges and the opportunities surrounding eco-innovation in Africa, but it's clear that this isn't just a regional issue.
It's a global issue.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what role can Africa play in shaping the future of eco-innovation on a wider scale?
It's a really good question, and I think it's one that people are starting to pay more attention to.
Okay.
Because Africa isn't just adopting eco-innovation. They're often pioneering it.
Right. It's that necessity.
Necessity.
Breeds innovation.
Exactly.
When you're dealing with those limited resources, you've got to find solutions that work.
You're forced to be creative.
Yeah.
And a lot of these solutions could be really valuable for the rest of the world.
Yeah, like what kinds of solutions?
Well, think about mobile money transfer systems.
Oh, okay.
Like M-Pesa.
Okay, yeah.
Which started in Kenya.
Right.
It wasn't designed with the environment in mind.
Right.
But it's had this huge impact at reducing the need for physical banks and transportation.
Yeah. Sometimes the most impactful innovations are the ones that solve a very specific problem,
Right.
but then have these ripple effects.
Totally.
So what other eco-innovations we see coming out of Africa?
Let's think about renewable energy.
Okay.
Africa has so much potential for solar, wind, geothermal.
Yeah.
As they develop these resources, they can become models for other countries that are trying to transition away from fossil fuels.
So it's not just about meeting their own needs.
Right. It's about sharing that knowledge.
Just about becoming that leader.
Exactly.
What about other areas where they could lead?
Sustainable agriculture.
Okay.
So African farmers have generations of experience working with the land.
Yeah.
And now they're really at the forefront of adapting to climate change.
Okay.
And developing something called climate-smart agriculture.
I've heard that term.
Yeah.
But I don't really know what it means.
So it's about finding ways to farm sustainably.
Okay.
Even as the climate is changing.
Yeah.
It often involves, blending traditional knowledge with modern techniques to increase productivity, conserve resources, and build resilience.
So it's that.
To things like drought and floods.
Right. It's that combination of old and new.
Yeah, it's like that sweet spot
Yeah.
where wisdom meets science.
And those practices could be really valuable for other regions facing those same challenges.
Absolutely.
It's really cool to think about Africa moving from being a recipient to a leader.
Yeah.
And it seems like organizations like the ATPS.
Yeah, they're playing a key role in supporting that shift.
They're
fostering networks. They're sharing knowledge across the continent and beyond.
Yeah.
And really helping to connect innovators with resources.
It seems like collaboration.
It's crucial.
Is so key.
Absolutely.
It's not just governments, it's businesses.
It's everybody working together.
Researchers, local communities.
Yep. And recognizing that eco-innovation isn't just about the technology.
Yeah.
It's about social innovation. It's about finding new ways to organize ourselves.
Right.
To live more sustainably.
It's a change in mindset.
It is a change in mindset.
Not just a change in gadgets.
Exactly. And that requires imagination. And a willingness to kind of question the status quo.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen a lot of that.
Absolutely. Africa's bursting. With creative solutions and such a deep understanding of how we're all connected.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about Africa maybe even leading the way in eco-innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been such an eye-opening deep dive.
Yeah, it's been great.
We've explored the complexities, the challenges, but also that incredible potential.
The potential, yeah.
And I think you've given us a lot to think about.
I hope so. This is an ongoing conversation, and we encourage you to keep learning about this. Learn from the inspiring work being done. And think about how you can be a part of building that more sustainable future.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
On this journey of discovery. And until next time, keep diving deep.